question 13, Don says, what was the orientation with respect to this type of communication for the one known as Jesus of Nazareth? And this is the orientation. If we go back, we're talking about the evangelist, right? The polarity of service to others working. I don't know why would Don ask that question? What does he mean? We'll find out. But yeah, this is the previous question that you're seeing here. This is the evangelist, right? So I guess based on this, we want to know what's the orientation of Jesus of this type of communication, right? Because Jesus. So okay. That makes sense. Let's read Ra's answer, and that'll patch it all together. All right, what was the orientation of Jesus of Nazareth for this type of communication? Ra says, you may have read some of this entity's workings. It offered itself as teacher to those mind-body-spirit complexes which gathered to hear, and even then spoke as through a veil, so as to leave room for those not wishing to hear. So you see, Don was asking about the evangelists, which come and basically want to tell you about their faith, their religion, their desire for whatever it is. I'm not familiar with the evangelists specifically, but it's the. I mean, no offense to anybody. It's the usual. I come here to sell you my goods, and because you need them. It's a sort of. It's not a negative polarity per se, but it's a sort of push, onto, and that is a bridging free will, which is what Ross says. Of course, is. This is why selling to me was so. Such a problem. I'll give you a very short anecdote. I think I've talked about this. I was sort of forced to sell my coaching and my training to people in a commercial gym, and I refused because I just didn't. They would teach you, how to manipulate people into their emotional part. They would teach you how to persuade people into telling you a little bit why they're there and what their emotional parts are, and then grab them by the heart or the emotion and squeeze it until they buy you. It was such a terrible thing. I just couldn't do it. It was just, that's a bridging free will to me. That's what I felt. I mean, I didn't know it was a bridging free will, but I think it's pretty obvious to us, that in selling, manipulation is just such a terrible thing, right? It just feels. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it's a terrible thing for, I don't know, somebody like me maybe. To other people it's fine, but yeah. The point is that that's exactly what the evangelists or others are doing. Not all of them, but the method, of coming because, hey, listen, you have to be saved. You have to hear this. It's sort of preaching with an expectation in mind. So that's what Don is asking. What about Jesus? How did he do it? And so Ra is saying that, well, you should be familiar with his workings, and you know that he offered himself as a teacher to those who gather around and wanted to hear. And even then, he spoke as through a veil, which is, the metaphorical Jesus that we heard. So, leaving room for those who didn't wish to hear. That's the cryptic sort of communication that happens. And though I would argue that not only, there are many things surrounding Jesus here, and the very hostile environment in which he grew up, because it was a fanatic one, with the Jews just being very religious about, the scriptures and all of this. So on top of that, also, I would add in that the mystical Jesus that he was, normally you can only talk about this stuff in metaphors and analogies and this type of, it's the best way to communicate things, because it's not that you're teaching them specific doctrine that they need to follow and believe, is that they need to believe in themselves once they hear the words and they click, they have that sort of satori. And satori doesn't come through scriptures. So I guess that's part of the veil in which Jesus taught or spoke. But there's more to this. Ra explains, when this entity was asked to heal, it oft times did so, always ending the working with two admonitions. Firstly, that the entity healed had been healed by its faith, that is, its ability to allow and accept changes through the violet ray into the gateway of intelligent energy. Secondly, saying always, tell no one. These are the workings which attempt a maximal quality of free will while maintaining fidelity to the positive purity of the working. Okay. So, when Jesus was asked to heal, we call this in our ignorant religion miracles, things that only Jesus could do. And yet miracles happen, and then we say, well, that's God. Nobody else. It was just God. That person there, because we have pedestalized Jesus. But anyway, so we have, when it was asked to heal, let's look at the two things. First, you are healing yourself. Okay, that's the first thing. Why? Because you don't want people to call you Messiah or whatever, because that's just once again distorting the gnosis of people. See, people learned about this. People said, wow, healing happens and it's a miracle, but it happened because of me. See the difference? It's huge. It's you who did it. And that's not some humbleness, that some fake humbleness that Jesus wanted to have for some reason. No, it's a legitimate thing. Only you can change your own outcome. Nobody else. This is once again externalizing it to say, oh, that person healed me, that person changed me, and so on. You change yourself. So that's the first thing. Let us be clear. If I heal you, I'm only helping you. I'm not healing you, actually. So that perception needs to change. And how was it done? It was done through faith, of course, that it was able to accept changes through the violet ray into the gateway of intelligent energy. Well, violet ray, 7th chakra, gateway of intelligent energy, indigo ray. Secondly, it said, tell no one, because why? It's a good question. Perhaps because of the environment that I explained before. Jesus didn't want to, be seen as somebody who worked with this or did this. I guess he felt a sense of duty when people believed in him, obviously. I think anybody would feel that sense of duty when asked, help me. And, I'm helping you help yourself. It's the first thing that he would say. And then, don't tell anybody, just keep it to yourself. That happened. Healing happened. This is not so miraculous at this point in our lives. We have cracked somehow the shell of containment with this information, when, first of all, we see cancer being healed by no intervention, not even some holistic, homeopathic or whatever, not even just the person alone suddenly just changed his life. It decided to move from its country. It decided to say, you know what, I'm just going to live my life Screw all of this, whatever. That changed his life, and suddenly, cancer is no longer there. He says, well, it's not there, of course. You don't have the thought patterns that were creating it, so change that and healing happened. So it's not a miracle, it's just obvious at this point that we need to change certain things. We'll talk about healing, of course, a lot more in this part, but that's one big thing. It's not miraculous. Now, what is the healer does? In any shape or form, the healer is providing information, right? I've given this example before, but it's a small one. People may shrug their shoulders and say, that's not representative, but it is. It's a small sample of what healing is. When you are asked by a friend, I have problems, with my girlfriend or my parents or whatever, and you sort of talk sense to them because you see that they're not making sense in their mental revolutions, and that person says, wow, that's brilliant, I don't know how I never thought about that, and so on. This person feels like a load has been taken off their shoulders. Well, that's healing. Of course, the thing is that we associate illness, like physical illness, with healing, which is the case in exacerbated thought patterns. But any thought pattern that is alleviated by the shining of pure information, and that's what you see in your friend. You say, well, isn't it this way? And you're just not seeing it the way it's supposed to be. And if the person allows it, then yes, because they could reject it and say, no, my point of view is right, then that person is not willing to change. And we'll talk about that here. But that's the way. You didn't heal your friend, you just talked sense to them. So if you can extrapolate this to so much more that is going on in our minds, that we can't see it, and that's okay. That's why we have friends like Jesus. See, that's why he's the eternal brother.